Welcome to this September's First Friday at Fusion Studio. My name is Rich Dione. I'm a co-director of the Fusion Studio for Entertainment and Engineering here at Purdue University. With me is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Mercer Applin. I'm an assistant professor of audio technology at Purdue's Department of Theater and Dance, also the audio technology guru here at Fusion Studio.
Yes, and we're coming to you with the exciting background of PLCs behind us from the John Martinson Entertainment and Engineering Labs here at Purdue. And with us today, I'm thrilled to have join us to sort of talk about their career and their experiences, Matt Jackson. And I'm going to give a little bit of his blurb, but let him mostly talk here. But Matt is the project portfolio director at Adirondack Studios. He's led high-profile projects for clients that include Universal Studios, Disney, Washington National Opera, and the Lyric Opera. He's been there since 2008. His background is in technical direction, project management, and fabrication. And he's also managed landmark projects like Madame Tussauds New York and the Sony Museum. These are things I didn't know before I read this just now. He's got a BFA from scene design from Keene State College, which I also didn't know, because I believe that's in New Hampshire, where I grew up. And an MFA in technical theater from Ohio University. Having said that, all of those words, I'm going to turn it over to Matt here and remind everybody who's attending, throw questions that you have up in the chat and the Q&A. There's an opportune moment to interrupt Matt. We'll ask them along the way. Otherwise, there'll be time at the end for us to ask Matt those things as well. So feel free to just start throwing those things up as David talks, or as Matt talks. I saw David on the screen. All right, Matt. I'm going to turn it over to you. I know you've got sort of a presentation, kind of.
Yeah, I've got it. So I've got an outline. Hey, everybody. I know I've been told that I know a bunch of you, and to those who don't, hello and welcome. So I've written a sort of an outline of what, so I guess we'll call my career. There's a reason that I'm backstage, as I said earlier to Rich. Talking in front of groups is not my biggest thing, although this is much better than being in front of actual humans. I will tell you, I have done one production of performance in my life when I wasn't a child, and that was as a ghost in an Isbin play. So walking from stage left to stage right was pretty easy in my ghost costume. So that's kind of where I'm at. So again, my name is Matt Jackson. I'm currently what we call a portfolio manager at Adirondack Studio, which means I manage a group of similar type projects. I manage the project managers. I mentor, I help, because I've just done this for way too long, to help them, get the best project out. I also take on smaller projects when we're busy, as I am right now. I actually got 2 theater shows, which I haven't done in, I don't know, 10 years. So it's been an interesting run in the last couple of weeks. So a little bit about me, just to start. I was born in Westport, Connecticut in 1970. So I am Gen X all the way. I moved to Southern California at the age of 4 for Dad's work, because that used to be what happened back in the 70s, wherever Dad got a job. My mom worked full-time as an RN, but she was more portable. And to be honest, the 70s were a lot like the 50s, where Dad went, the whole family went. I lived there till I was 16. And from there, I moved back to Westport, finished high school, and then started college. I went to a Dean Junior College in Franklin, Massachusetts, after what I've written down as a stellar high school career. Dean Junior allowed me to enter with, basically it was like applying to McDonald's, and they just asked, can your father afford the payment? No, I didn't have to do anything other than that. And my grades pretty much were community college or this, but my dad felt, my mom, that a real college atmosphere, which Dean Junior was what I kind of needed to get a little more serious. When in Dean, I discovered theater. So in my life, I had done performance as a little kid. I sang in the church choir. I had done high school choir, that kind of stuff. I had done an opera at the Long Beach Grand Opera, and I certainly loved everything about performance. Wasn't too jazzed about singing, but seeing a fly law for the first time in an orchestra pit, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then I went to forgetting about that until I got into college. When I got into college, I had choice. I could take a drawing class or a technical theater class. And I was like, I don't want to draw. So we had a theater at Dean Jr., which was a converted church, and the was the second floor was the theater at about 50 seats. First floor was the shop, which is 25 feet by 25 feet. And I met my first mentor, and that's kind of how this goes. Is the mentors that I've met along the way. Patrick Moore. He was the theater department. He directed the shows. He built the scenery. He did all of that stuff. He taught the 3 classes that were available. But I took the class, and then the first day I built a window, and he said, "Hey, you're pretty good at that." I was pretty handy, and I said, "Well, yeah, but so what? Like, what big deal?" He's like, "You can do that for a living." I was like, "No, come on, really?" And that was it. I was done. I never had done anything since that day, other than entertainment theater, that you could get paid to build stuff. Because I was the kid who took apart stuff and then put it back together and watched 1,000, mini bikes burn because I didn't know how to tune it, but I knew how to clean it and put it back together. And then it ran so fast that the piston shot through the head. And, so that was where I came from. And then I found out that I could build stuff for a living. How incredible was that?
That's awesome. So I wanted to ask a question,
Sure.
if you don't
Oh,
mind
no, please.
interrupting.
I love the
Um,
face because it means I know that you're about to say something. Oh, you froze.
and so Rachel would know to turn
Oh.
turn on the microphone. There was something you said about uh, singing was okay, but like seeing the fly loft in the orchestra pit was really interesting to you, and I guess that resonated with me a little bit. And I wanted to maybe hear more about that, or just sort of commiserate on the idea that uh, even now those spaces are still kind of magical to me, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's my venue or a venue I've never been in before, there's still a sort of mystique. Is that still true for you? Like there's something
Oh,
about
oh goodness. It has changed in that I don't get to see a lot of theaters anymore. I still get to see them. A lot of my friends still work on Broadway, so I get to go visit and that kind. It's still a blast to go backstage at Wicked and sit under the deck and see people I haven't seen in a long time and that kind of a
sure,
thing.
yeah,
Now it's construction sites, amusement park show boxes, empty amusement parks, big
sure,
holes in the ground. Later on, I'll talk about working on the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas
uh-huh,
35 years ago. And just being so excited that I got to see the largest mobile crane in the world at the time work and
nice.
stand next to it and be like, oh my God. And then turn around and there was a 700-foot deep hole that eventually we would put scenery in. Right? We put a
So
lake and so I still get totally jazzed by going to job sites.
I was going to say, so
Just,
that mystique transfers to even non-theater sites where you're doing these really sort of cool
oh yeah, because
projects.
I'm still the kid who I like the Tonka trucks, right? That's what I did when I was a
Yeah,
kid. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
Theater was the first time. I mean, I don't think I would have been that excited if my grandfather was an electrician in World War II. And so we have a
Sure,
working class background. I'm not sure if my dad taught me how to lead 1/0 cable, I would have been so excited. Um,
sure.
theaters theater certainly helped. Like standing on the stage at the Grand Opera in Los Angeles or Long Beach and seeing the majesty of 1,500 seat house, and I didn't know what these words meant. Running around the
Right,
VOM, going backstage, seeing
sure.
people in makeup, and that certainly helped a lot.
That's
More
awesome.
exciting than
That's
like a
awesome.
local 3 electrician pulling cable, that kind of a thing.
Sure.
Um,
I also have realized now there's a vacation we all should take together. Outside of Vegas, apparently there's a venue where you can pay to just drive big construction
yes,
vehicles. Like you can drive backhoes and front loaders and just move sand around for 3 hours. We're
it's
all going.
completely awesome.
It
I
sounds like we should
remember
do
the
that.
first one of those opened when I was at Wynn, and
Ben.
and they they went out of business after 3 weeks because everyone kept running the things into each other.
Oh yeah,
Because
sure. Why
they
not?
didn't know there was no safety. They basically bought used equipment, put it in a
Yeah.
dirt lot, and said, "Hey, go to town." And then the guys
Oh my
didn't know how to
God.
stop them, and they had no
Oh my
emergency.
God.
Now they can kill it, and they can. Sorry for that
That's
aside.
fantastic. So we interrupted you when you were talking about learning that you could do this for a living, right? Like
Yeah,
you built a window. The TD that you were working with, or the mentor you were working with, was like, "This is a thing you can do," and you're like, "Shut up, get out of here." And then you've been doing it ever since. So
yeah. And
back to
he talked to me about his life because I'd never back in the day when I did perform, we never talked to anybody who did it for a living. You go and sing, and then you go and play with your friends or whatever. He did cruise ships in the '70s, which is freaking the incredible stories of debauchery that happened on cruise ships down in Florida in the '70s. He did rock and roll. He was a spot man for the Allman Brothers. So basically, he sat on top of a 70-foot pole with 4 guide wires, probably high as a kite, in the middle of rainstorms and just ran it. And I thought that was having no idea. Like, you don't know, there's no, maybe now more, you could see it on Instagram or something, and the big shows that happen in Europe and all that. But this would have been in the late '80s, no idea any of this stuff was. I just didn't even think about, oh yeah, there's all that stuff that they do to make these shows possible. So Patrick said, I played soccer in college, played in high school, and when professional soccer didn't come knocking, um, I said, hey, I should probably do this, and I met at, is it ACTF? Is that what they call it? All right, ACTF, or the one that's up in the Northeast. NETC, I can't remember what they're called. Um, I met Celine Perron, who's the professor at Keene State. She's now the head of the theater department. She was a French Canadian. She had just got the job 2 or 3 years before I started. Um, in in her awesome French Canadian accent, um, used to push me to do whatever I wanted. I got
Hmm.
in for design, let's call it, but it wasn't, you did everything. But they had 2 nice theater spaces. They had a robust theater department, nice shop. Um, and she just said, do whatever you want. You want to build stuff, you want to design stuff, you want to learn how to draft, because they didn't have a real formal program like
Yeah.
most back in the late '80s. Um, and so when I was finished, I said, "What do I do now? Like, what?" And the people were describing all of these like summer theaters, and we had one that was part of Keene State. I don't remember which one it was, and I said, "That doesn't sound fun. Like why would I want to do that?" Now, I'll tell you in a minute, I did do that, but at the time I was like, "Well, I could go work at home in Connecticut fixing houses for, to be honest, rich people and get paid a lot of money and be fine." I hadn't really thought of it as a career, and she said, "No, no, no, you should do this. Don't If you don't want to do summer theater and you don't want to do regional theater, okay, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to move to New York City and figure it out, or how about the graduate programs?" And so I met at the time Tony Dorfman, who's I think at Yale now, or was. She's probably retired. I forget how old I am. She was just coming in as the new dean of the School of Theater at Ohio University. And I met her at one of those conferences where you would go up into the hotel and do your graduate interview after showing your stuff, kind of ACTF sort of, but it was in Chicago. And I met her in the hotel room, and she said, "So why do you want to come?" And I said, "I have no idea, but I think I have to come here." And she's like, "Well, do you want to come?" And I said, "What could be more fun than keeping on doing this?" And she said, "Okay, you're in." I said, "Do you want my transcript?" She said, "No, I don't. It doesn't really matter. At this point, we're a professional training school, and you will come in with whatever skills you have, and that'll be fine. You obviously you're going to graduate from undergrad with a degree, so you obviously kind of are not a dope and are going to ruin everything. So come on in." And she said the way that the school worked is you pay for your first, we had a trimester system. You pay for your first trimester, and if it goes well, we'll pay for everything from then on. Right? If you prove that you're, I guess worthy and you're going to work hard and do all this stuff. So I did. And so I went to Ohio State, Ohio. Oh, I can't believe I almost said Ohio State. Ohio University, the Ohio University. I'd like to know everyone to know that the reason it's called that is because of Ohio University. And for some reason, we were getting confused with them, or they were using our shine to look a lot better. And so they changed their name. So I went to Ohio University. I did go to an ACTF down in DC our first year because Ming-Cho Lee was there and he was doing his portfolio reviews. And I was a scenic designer at that point. Still love technical theater and I still built all the stuff, but I got in for scenic design. I think we were doing no exit. We did the drawings, did the models, and we showed it to him. Ursula Belden was the head of the design department at Ohio University, who was, I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember this, we called them Minglets. So she went to Yale. Ming was her mentor. She talked about him with reverence, as she should have. And so he looked at all of our stuff, and he got to me and he said, "Oh, your drawing is very nice, and your model is very nice." And then he looked at me really quick and said, "You should do technical things, not be a designer." And I didn't have I didn't come from like some artist background that he usually chose, so my feelings weren't hurt. Right? His thing was, and I had met him in the future and heard him talk. I need artists. I will teach them theater. Right? That was kind of his guiding light. And he saw me and he said, "Your model's too nice and your drawings are great, but you need to be a technical person, not a." And so I took it to heart. I went back to school and I talked to Ursula and I said, "Well, what do you think?" And she's like, "Do you want to switch?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do. I think that's where I have more fun in the shop than I do, cranking a 36-hour day to get a model done." And we still had to do that because I was part of the program, but we had to take those design classes. So that's when I met Dan Denhart, and I think people probably know Dan.
Yeah.
Dan is
Yeah, I know Dan.
one of my two favorite people in the world for entertainment.
Hmm.
Um, he at the time was the faculty TD, but he taught the TD classes. Now he is a professor. Should have been a
Yes.
professor then, but they didn't do it that way back then. And I glommed onto him for 3 straight years. He was fantastic. He's the one who taught me stop crying, just figure it out. Right? Whenever I would whine about something, and he would just say, "Okay, great. Are you gonna stop? Are you done? Should you go home?" Right? Like what's the point of you complaining to me right now? You have the answer in the question you're giving me. Like, why can't I do X, or why I know X? And so he would just say, "Go figure it out.
Here's what's
What's
amazing
stopping
about
you?"
that, right? So I know Dan as a colleague. I didn't take classes with him, and there may be people in the chat who did take classes with him. If you did, say something about this. But my experiences with Dan is that he's a big old softy,
Oh no,
right?
completely.
Like, so the ability to deliver that critique paired with his sort of I don't want to say lovable, but it's kind of the best word I have. I don't know. That kind of makes it work, right? Because
Oh
you don't
yeah.
get beat up by it.
Not at all. I mean,
Yeah,
he has 4 boys and 2 girls. I can't remember the number. I got to know his wife, but he just was
yeah,
straight up Midwest honest, right? He worked hard for a living. Why aren't you working hard? Stop
yeah.
crying. You need to learn AutoCAD. Don't cry that we don't have it. Go get it, right?
Go get it.
Go audit a class in the engineering department. So that's what I did. And then
Yeah.
a year
Yeah.
later, he got money and go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Matt, it sounds like throughout this entire kind of early phase of your creative and technical life, that it was these mentors that that really kind of guided your path and helped you kind of see that that technical path that you've taken to this day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Are there mentoring techniques or things that you encountered as you were navigating this that you've transplanted into your current role as a mentor to your
Yeah.
employees?
Oh, for sure. So it happened not on purpose. Dan was just being Dan. So there were other students in my class who didn't ask those questions, were destined, and this is not a discussion on importance for at that time, $25,000 a year job at a tiny regional theater where you did 4-unit sets and most of it was from rep, but you were never pushing yourself. There wasn't anything interesting especially for me. He had
And
those.
that's what they wanted.
Yeah, and he had, no, a couple of my good friends do that and they love it and they have great families, and it
Yep.
just wasn't for me. And so, but Dan took you where you were, and if you said you wanted to go somewhere, he expected you to friggin' do it.
Yeah.
Don't, right? And he would let you know that's not what you said you wanted to do, right? That's
Sure.
not, and that happened. I think throughout my career, I lucked onto people, just happenstance. The next 4 people are just like that. My best friend in the world, Rod Hickey, I met that way. Just
Sure.
happened
Yeah.
to work out, and part of it is being present, being verbal with what you want, not being a punk about it, for lack of a better term, but saying,
Sure.
I want to do this. Okay, well, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. All right, cool. When can I start doing that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what I saw in summer theater were a lot of people who had that same feeling and they got used by the summer theater, who had nothing to give at the end of the process. Cool. I'm going to
Yeah.
use your energy to build my scenery for nothing. And then, well, good luck. Um, and I did summer theater. I did
I think
scene.
we used to call that paying your dues.
Yeah.
Now we did
That
call it
was,
paying your dues, and we've
yeah,
talked about this before. Some of it,
we
I
have.
think, some of it we've lost a little bit because it got really shitty on pardon my French, on the other side. It was
It did.
unsafe. It wasn't
It
just
did.
working hard. It was you were being used, and
Yes.
most of it would have been illegal if you didn't call it a nonprofit theater, right?
Right.
The city or the municipality would have come and said, you can't do this, right?
I'm thinking about my first summer theater gig in a place that will remain unnamed, but it was 8 weeks of 1 week sock in a circus tent that we put up, right? The first
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks of your gig, everybody's building the tent. And we put in a tension wire grid at the top of the tent, which was Schedule 40 pipe with cheese burrows, not rated, and chain link fence,
Oh yeah,
baling wired to the
that's what they
pipe.
have
That
at
was our
Tufts, right? I think, right?
yeah.
That's the one they put
And
in.
I remember the lighting intern would stand on a sheet of plywood that was basically in a puddle of mud, 2 cinder blocks and a board, CD80 dimmer racks, and they'd be hot patching, standing in an inch of water during the
Yeah.
show. That's totally
No,
fine.
Impossible
yeah,
to
and that's
us.
the kind of
Fine.
stuff that is what people keyed in on. But I
Right.
did Williamstown, probably in
Yeah.
'93, which is probably one of the last years it was a traditional summer theater. They've gone through a bunch of iterations. They just came out with a new one where they do
Hmm.
15 shows or whatever it is. But we would work
Yeah.
13 on, 1 off, 13 on, 1 off all summer. I was master carpenter. I met actually one of my friends that I worked with works with me here as a project manager. Um, but that was the end of a time. They just didn't do that anymore. We lived in the
Yeah.
Did
dorms.
you
Go ahead.
did you find that experience exhilarating in the
Oh, I
moment?
loved
And
it. There was
yeah,
nothing better than driving the truck from the scene shop was in another town, the next town over, called North Adams, in an old shoe factory, which had part of it blocked off because there were dangerous chemicals in it. Because it's by a river in North Edwards that they used to pour. There was a printing building next to us.
Yep.
So this guy, it was a tannery as well as a shoe manufacturer, and all of the
Sure.
It's the stuff they used to do on the Hudson, right, in the
Yeah.
leather kill area. They used to just pour the stuff in the water. But we had 5-inch thick oak plank shop floor, so which was really neat, and the building was cool. But the truck to get the stuff to the theater barely had any brakes. I was one of 2 people with a driver's license. And so the kids would get in the back and then we would drive it down and you'd have to downshift down the hills so you didn't crash into anybody. That was kind of fun. right? That was
Ah,
that was a
ah,
little different than standing and doing hot patching in water.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
because we built out of real materials. We built real shows for real designers. We had
Yep.
real turnarounds. That was a nice theater. It's still, they've redone it, but it's a nice theater.
Yep.
So yeah, you worked 17 hours on the load-in, but it was the real thing. You know, it
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't the tent. It wasn't that kind of stuff. They rented real lighting equipment. They had real lighting
Right.
designers, and that's why it was
Right.
fun. Right,
Yeah.
working with
That
Brian
wasn't the
McDevitt when he was brand new was cool.
that wasn't the response I was expecting. I was expecting you to say, I had such a traumatic time in summer stock that it transitioned me
No,
towards
no. So,
the fixed
well, I
install
guess I
work.
was too stupid. I did do a traditional horrible at in Block Island. There was a theater called Scenery West, and it was in the old boat on the south side of the island in the old boat warehouse that they put all the boats in the winter, and it was a movie theater and then it was a theater. I lived behind the movie theater screen with the rest of the tech staff. We got paid
Oh my gosh.
$75 a week, mostly surviving on popcorn and jujubes from the theater because we got popcorn for free and
Jeez.
juju and candy at a discount. We would run the theater, we'd run the movie, then I would run the board on the show, then we'd run another movie. Um, but that still
Okay.
was sort of exhilarating. I was too dumb to know the difference. We weren't using
Sure.
good materials, but it was relatively safe. We did musicals and they were pretty easy, but it was still sort of that fun, give me paint and a plank and that kind of a feeling to it.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but the guy who ran it was completely disreputable and didn't pay us anything. But it felt a little better. I worked at Bay Street Theater after graduate school, which at the time it was fine, but that's when I came with the reaction that you might thought. I was like, oh, I think I'm done with this. Because I was
Hmm.
working in the richest part of our country for some of the biggest designers in the world, and it was so horrible. I was tired. I wasn't getting paid enough. We lived in a house of a rich patron that hadn't been lived in like 10 years, and it smelled like it, and there was a pool that was green, and they said, "Hey, we got a pool," and it's like, "Oh, but you got to clean it and fix the works, and then maybe it'll." So that's kind of when that happened. When I was like, right before I went into New York City, is at that point I was like, I don't, no way am I ever going to do that. I thought about tours because I
Sure.
had some friends on tour, and then I saw what happened when they came back off a tour. And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to do that either." Um, so I moved to New York City in '95. Um, and earlier in '95, before I graduated, I worked for Aurora Productions, which is was Gino Donovan's tech supervision company. Um, and I was Gal Friday. Whatever Gene said to do, I just did it. I delivered drawings everywhere. But what I got to do is I got to go into meetings with Tony Walton, all the producers, I said Brian McDevitt before. Uh, we were doing Tommy, and I think we were doing Tommy in New York because it was reviving, and Tommy Germany, and he was doing 15 shows. So I got to learn how New York worked. What it wasn't PRG at the time. What were they called? Scenic. I don't remember. What is now PRG? Hudson. I learned Neil Mazzella and Gene started Hudson. At that time, Neil and Gene didn't get along, so I got a really interesting sort of view between Neil, who was a name that you heard of sort of in reverence, which deservedly so. I'd never met him, but then I start to meet him on shows, and other than here, Mr. Mazzella, here's some drawings. But I got to see when they were loading the deck in. I got to see when they were, kicking in the deck, when they were doing the wires and they were doing all that kind of stuff. And it led to my first job after I graduated and after summer theater. I had actually lived on a couch in the Upper West Side for 2 months, doing drafting for Broadway designers on the side. I got my first playbill for what was it called? Masterclass, which is the Maria Callas show. I did 4 tours of drawings, and so I got to be in a playbill. That was my mom was very impressed with that one. She finally said, "Oh, look, you're doing something with your life. Isn't that nice?" From there, I worked at Hudson for about 1.5 years under Neil. I ran the router. I came for an interview. Corky Boyd, God rest his soul, said, "What do you want to do? You come with enough recommendations that I'm going to give you a job, but it'll be beginner. And what do you want to do? You want to draw?" I was like, I don't know. He's like, "You want to work on the floor?" I'm not sure. Well, okay. You know how to use a router and a computer? Sure. So I ran the CNC, which they had gotten 6 or 7 months before. And then I worked on that. I did special stuff at that time, graphic printing for them, because I was young enough to understand what that meant. And that was 30 years ago, super early, that kind of stuff. No one was doing it. Printing drops was very just, I used to do pounces on the router for huge drops for Broadway shows. And now they were printing those. Rose Brand, Giant Image, some of those companies were starting to think about that kind of stuff. And I will say that Hudson's the only place I ever got fired from. Neil did a purge, and basically, if you were standing within eye shot of him at the moment that he made the decision, you were let go. So that was kind of funny. But we are acquaintances. When I see him, he recognizes me. I still have the utmost respect for what he was able to do and has been able to do. I freelanced for a while after that, and then I went to go work at Showman, which is now, it was called Showman Fabricators, then it was SFI, but we were in Brooklyn before they now are in New Jersey. I was the head of the technical design department. I met the person, Serge Hunkins, who is now at Caden Productions. I met him on a fashion show, load-in, which is what you did for money when you were 22. For a week, you would work about 150 hours and get paid a whole lot of money, and then you could rest for a month by just doing scenery and lights and that kind of a thing. At Showman, I learned what a shop could be. Showman at the time, and kind of still is, was a family shop. Everyone was from Brooklyn. They all went to Purchase. It's not as much now, but Bob wasn't went to Purchase. Mike, Mark, all of them, everybody. And so that was very interesting, much different than Hudson, which was an old school shop. Showman was pretty young at that time, right? They had started in the Playwrights Horizons basement 5 or 6 years before I had started. But there, I got my first Broadway experience because they bought, I can't remember what shop it is. They bought a shop that gave them a Local 4 card, which Local 4 doesn't exist anymore, but at the time it was one of the other IATSEs in New York, which allowed them to do Broadway shows. So I got to do like 10 Broadway shows. Oh my God, what's the best thing in the whole world? I was the TD on technical designer on the 10 Broadway shows. But as I say in my notes, with ADHD, that got a little boring after a while. We had just started to get into retail, Showman did. So we did this thing called the NBC Experience, which is a themed entertainment store at Rockefeller Center, where I met Rod Hickey, who was a jobbed-in project manager. And one day he said, "I'm really looking for someone to help me do this." And as he walked out the door, I ran after him and I said, "Hey, I'll do it." And then I left Showman about a week and a half later. I was done. I don't make the decisions quickly, except when it's time to make the decision. Like I stewed on leaving Showman before I had met Rod for a long time. But I was engaged to be married, which didn't work out, but I had my future to think about, all of that, those kind of adult things that you don't want to have. So Rod and I started Big Show, and we started with, 42nd Street, Madame Tussauds on 42nd Street. And so basically we were the first sort of specialty contracting firm to deal with scenic design or scenic interiors, which was all theater people at that point. Now there are specialists who do it, and general contracting. He had just come off Treasure Island and a couple of their big shows in Las Vegas as the TD. So he knew a lot about general construction, and he knew a lot about scenery as well. And I, again, just said, "Sure, I could do it," when he asked me. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Can you go lay out 4 floors of drywall?" Okay. And they kind of figured it out because it was just like scenery, except they did metal framing and drywall. It had a shape, it had a width, you had control points, and so I learned all about construction during that job, unions, all of those things. and we just continued to go. We did stuff at the Met. We did stuff at AM&H. We did the Toys R Us, which is now a Gap and a Children's Gap. We put that Ferris wheel in. We put all the stores in. We put the dinosaur in. We went through the middle of 9/11 while we were building that store. I watched the second plane hit the building on the big screen in front of the ABC studios. What a weird friggin' time that certainly was. And we just continued on. And my biggest job for him was the Wynn Resorts job in Las Vegas. So we were in charge of specifying, doing preliminary drawings for all of the automation, control, and scenery for the outdoor water, lake, mountain, all of that stuff. And so I lived out in Vegas with my dog for about a year and had the most fun I'd ever had in my whole life. I got to work on a construction site. I had a little car. What are those things called? Um, the little buggies, because the office was on the other end of the project. I got to see the largest R24, so 24,000 lumen projector. I watched them turn it on and melt 2-inch thick glass because someone made a mistake in the glass. It was friggin' awesome. I sat in a 60-foot pit that was, if you know the show, there's a waterfall and there's something that comes out of the pond and they project on, it's a face with no features. I was in the pit fixing a hydraulic manifold, and our boss at Wynn Resorts was getting mad and they needed to fill it up again. So he thought he would make it go faster by filling it up while I was in there. So all of a sudden my feet started getting wet, and I was screaming at him and he was laughing at me. And he's like, "Well, you better finish, because I think, that's about a foot a half an hour. So you got, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours till you're done." Um, totally fun, right? I sat in a room with 5,000 horsepower of hydraulic motors as they turned on, and my heart was in another county because it was so violently loud, which was just totally awesome. So, right, that's what I loved. And you talk, that's the kind of stuff that I was a little kid again, right? Opening an 8-inch diameter hydraulic valve with a big wrench we had cut on the router out of, a laser cutter out of 3/4 inch steel, because we hadn't done the mechanics yet in the stepper valves. That was awesome, standing in hydraulic fluid, like that kind of a thing. Um, so I stayed at Big Show. I met right now my current wife and love of my life just about the time I started. And then in
Mm-hmm.
2008, lo and behold, this little guy came around, and life took another left turn. And my wife had just gotten a job in Albany, working as a general counsel for a state office, who's a lawyer. And lo and behold, I had to tell my best friend that I had to move, and go upstate. And Adirondack I had known over the years. And I called up and to the head of production and said, "Hey, I need a job. What do you got?" And he's like, "You want to draw for us?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." I took
Yeah.
a pay
Yeah.
cut, but I had to move because this is where the family was. Stayed there for 2 years, left for a year, tried to make big money in the exhibit business in New Jersey. Didn't like that 2-hour commute each way, 3 days a week. Money was great, but I just couldn't do it.
Sure.
Came back to Adirondack as the technical director, so the head of technical direction. And in that time period, from when I came back to when I moved into PM, we went from a $10 million company to a $65 million company. It wasn't all my fault. But I had 15 people working for me, 70 hours a week. Just, we were cranking. We were working all over the
Wow.
world. I traveled all over the world, which I never thought about, like going to Singapore and going to Beijing and Shanghai
Yeah.
and the Middle East. Um, and now I've moved into this. I did project management for a little while, which is basically what I was doing when I was with Rod at Big Show. And
Yeah.
we did Google, the Geffen Hall renovation, the Top of the Rock renovation at Rock Center. And then a new wave of vice presidents came through our company, and they changed positions. And so I kind of am in my newer management role,
Gotcha.
doing it now. And I have 4 people who are working under me. You work under me if your job is in my sphere of influence.
Yeah.
So PMs
Yeah.
can float, but I'll stay in basically anything that's not an amusement park. It was going to
Wow.
be just museums, but now it seems to be anything that's not an amusement park because we have so much work with Disney and Universal. There is no one else to do this kind of a thing.
Sure.
But
Do you
you
mind if
know,
I interrupt you
oh, please go right ahead.
right there? Just because we're already at 1:45, which is
Okay.
ridiculous to me. And a couple of things I just wanted to sort of tease out. First is we joked earlier. I don't remember if it was when people were in the room or not, but this outline will be this presentation could be the outline of your memoirs, and we all were like, yeah, whatever. For me, and maybe it's because we're close to the same age. The stories you've told about the companies that you've interacted with and the people you've interacted with, like it captures a chunk of time in which there was so much evolution and change in this industry, and there's so many of these high points, right? Like I'm remembering that in the late 80s, like Iowa was the school to go as a
Oh
TD,
yeah.
and like other than Yale, right? Yale was always a school to go to, but Iowa, and then Hudson and Neal and Williamstown. It's sort of the chain. Like there's so many amazing parts about that era in the industry that you got to be a part of. I don't think it's as much of a joke to say you should write a memoir as we were earlier. You probably should. And Ed's got a question. We're going to get to it. The other thing I wanted to tease out, and Mercer kind of alluded to it. There's sort of 2 bits. One is there seem to always be these figures that were mentors for you, and I would love to hear what you learned from them about being a mentor, because you've mentioned a couple of times that now you're mentoring production managers. So maybe that's the first question. Like, what have you learned, or what do you take away from all of these folks that you listed who were key in your life, and what do you use to apply, or what do you apply to the folks that you're mentoring now?
To trust. So when someone comes for me, one of the first things I say is, I don't expect you to be perfect, and I will always have your back. You
Hmm.
fall on your face unless you do something really horrible, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't like you for. I said, there are more of my mistakes around the world than you will ever even try to accomplish. So don't worry about it. Because from that mistake comes a
Sure.
solution. Comes, right? I've never had a show not open. I've never killed anybody yet. Right? And that works because it breaks down the, like, you don't have to impress me. You're in front of me for a reason, and that's what my mentors did. So Dan did.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Rod did too. Rod just said, "Well, you're here, so you can do this. So go do it." That's the
Right.
thing. Like, why are you standing in front of me? I asked you to go do something that I know you can do, and I trust you can do, and that's what I'm asking you to do. Right? You don't have
Yeah.
to impress me because you're here. That's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
here for a reason. Now, please go do what I think you can do, and
That's great.
turn
Yeah.
around and tell me I have no friggin' clue, because that's fine, because then I get to give you, right, I get to give you some experience, because I have
Yeah.
a young lady who's working for me now. I've told her many times, you're not supposed to know how to do that, right? And
Yeah.
I haven't jumped in because I'm waiting for you to talk to me about it. I need you to go
Yeah.
through the process of hitting your head against the wall to turn around and then ask the question, because it
Yep.
doesn't, I can't micromanage all of these people into being successful. Then
Yeah.
no one's successful.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And uh, I'm that's something I know I try to bring in the classroom. I'm sure Mercer does. It's something that I notice that contemporary students struggle with a lot more. So, like, something for the students who are in the chat to recognize is, we're not, those of us who do that kind of mentoring, we're not trying to make you frustrated or piss you off. It's just how you learn better when you wrestle with it yourself first. The other thing I noticed, in at least the way you told your story, there were these moments where you just jumped,
Mm.
where you just leapt, and you said, "Here's an opportunity. I'm going to take it." And you sort of said there were times where were looking around, you were ready for an opportunity. What That's scary because sometimes you don't know what you're jumping
Oh,
into.
it
Like
took me a
what gives
year
you the
to tell
courage?
Rod. I didn't tell him my wife was pregnant or that we were trying to get pregnant till she was, I mean, about to pop for, sorry, not to be disgraceful
Sure.
to my wife. I didn't even tell him she was pregnant because this is my best friend who had allowed me to join him on a journey to do stuff I'd never get to do, that I
Yeah.
haven't even dreamed would be interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really, really hard. But leaving Showman was really hard too, because they had given me an opportunity and basically did this. I didn't have really mentors at Showman. I wouldn't call Bob Uston a mentor, but he is a good guy. The opportunity, okay, you can do it, go for it. Right? Don't the, the-
So what gave you the courage to take what were these hard leaps? Like how did, I don't know, maybe I'm not asking the question right, but you just described them as really
you
difficult
know what?
things
I
to do.
seriously, it's my ADHD. Like that has to be part of it. That has to be, my uncle is a doctor. I have friends who are doctors, and their ability, and my friends in some of the theater universe for
Yeah.
sure, who are
Yeah.
such experts. My
Yeah.
brain cannot do that. I
Yeah.
could get
Yeah.
all those people to work together to do something interesting that they probably couldn't do by themselves, but I
Yeah.
cannot focus that hard for that. Like I have a friend Dennis who's a head of pediatrics ER here in Albany. His son is friends with my son. I have no idea how he does what he does, right? Or when my
Yeah.
uncle is
Yeah.
talking, I'm like, your level of expertise is so incredible. Some of the guy when we go to USITT and we talk about some of the people at the lighting companies and Scott
Yeah.
Fisher, for example,
Yeah.
right, is so intelligent beyond my how I could ever, and you'd never, not that you would never know it, but he's so nonchalant about it and everything.
Sure.
But I
Sure.
had to move. I'd get shaky. And now when my son came, there's a different, you got a different filter. I can't just
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
up and
Yeah.
take off. I've had
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
I could be in China right now or Europe right now, but not
Yeah.
because I got a boy and he's in high school and I'm getting him ready to send him to college. So it changes
Yeah.
a bit. But early on, I just eventually I was like, this is too much of the same thing. Broadway's
Well, I
great,
appreciate.
but when you do 10 of them, and it's not
Yeah.
Spider-Man, and it's right because Showman didn't do that kind of stuff. We were
Yeah.
unit
Yeah.
set, maybe a little moving thing, but
Right.
just
It's another set of flats and walls,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've done that. Yeah. I do appreciate your uh, uh, sort of acknowledging, like leaning into what other folks might consider a challenge or a weakness, and just being, no, this is who I am. My brain jumps around to 1,000 things. I'm going to do that, right? Um, as opposed to, I know that there are folks who look at things like ADHD ness as a challenge. Instead of thinking of it as a challenge, thinking this is who I am. I'm going to follow it where it takes me,
It
and I
was it
appreciate
was
that.
a challenge for a long time. Well, I have dyslexia as
Yeah,
well, and that was a
yeah,
super challenge for a long time. Not to call
yeah,
myself stupid, because
yeah,
God bless Los Angeles, but it has the worst school system in the country.
yeah.
And
Wow.
just to finally grow out of that and go, yeah, that's true. Okay, great. For me, I don't get a sticker or a thing on my sweater
Yeah,
that gives me a
yeah,
pass. I just have to deal with it. And that doesn't mean I don't have I don't have the ADHD sort of times 100. I'm in
sure.
the
Yeah,
lower percentile of it, where
yeah.
I can't focus that long for that kind of a thing. But I know a lot of shit that I probably has no use whatsoever, right? That's kind of, but you know what? In this business, all of a sudden it's important.
Yeah,
So I just wanted
yeah,
to say something
yeah,
to the student. So I was trying to write something down. So this is my note to like the younger generation. I'd like you guys to do this every day. Don't be a jerk. Biggest rule of the universe. Don't, and if it's okay, don't be an asshole. To be honest, is
yeah.
what I tell my son. He's 17. He can hear curse words. Appreciate that that those that take time to teach you, appreciate those who take the time to teach you. Learn to enjoy the heat of failure, right? We're
Hmm.
supposed to fail. As I
Yeah,
said, my failures are all over, but so are my
yeah,
fixes. So are my,
Yeah.
oh my God, I just spent 12 hours trying to figure out why the friggin' dragon wouldn't go up the third ring cycle deck at Washington Grand Opera. It's because I didn't have enough juice running to the battery, but it took me 12 hours to figure it out. Because you know why? I'm not an electrical engineer because I can't focus that much, right?
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
and, and learn to enjoy the heat of failure and count yourself extremely lucky that this is what gets your motor running. Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of people who don't understand how much fun this is, right? And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this, look at the stuff behind your heads, right? I'm sorry, I love my finance bros, but they don't know why that's exciting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
kind of I want the younger generation. I work with a bunch of them. That one, you have a big history of our entertainment universe behind you, but you're so lucky that this gets you going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what's running your day.
Yeah.
Um,
Think you could just be excited about spreadsheets.
Right.
Like, no
yeah,
thanks.
and I have plenty of friends who are. Don't get me wrong. But that was
Matt,
it. That was my little bit.
pivoting over, Matt,
Sure.
to some questions from our
Oh,
audience.
please.
Edward asks, what surprised you most when you first started?
Started where? Which part?
Wonderful question. Ed, were you thinking early in your career working in some of the major shops that you've worked in at Adirondack when you first
Um,
started?
so the reason I've been here for almost 18 years now is because it's a family, and the two owners, one who recently passed away, Chris Detmer, Thomas, worked with Tom this morning. The other owner, their main goal, and they've stated to all of us, we have a thing every quarter. We have a big lunch. The whole company gets a lunch, and says is to keep us employed. That's why they do this. Oh, you guys
Mm,
froze. Oh, you froze a little. Sorry. Um, and they've given me the opportunity with all of my quirks to represent them in foreign countries for new to win work, to do work,
sure.
to give me that opportunity. But my biggest surprise was that everyone sort of likes each other around here most of the time, right? Most of the time, from shop floor to management to, I mean, there's always some asshole that doesn't like anybody and all that kind of stuff. But I
Sure.
love Karen from Soft Goods. Her son just passed away. We all went to her son's funeral. We all supported her. We did work around her house. That's the kind of place that I want to spend 18 years at. And so that was very surprising. Not that Hudson wasn't a great place, but God damn it, they were bottom line, and it's the only way you can survive being in New York City and doing what and living off of Broadway. And it's the reason I
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
working for Rod, because we were basically the same person. We're just 10 years apart, where we were just little kids going, I can't believe we get to do this, right? Like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Um,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
does that
I
answer the question?
think so. And in the remaining couple of minutes that we have left, I know you were kind of anxious to show some of the
Oh,
work
my little
that,
video.
yeah, that you were
I'm
working
sorry.
on.
So
And
we have what we call a splash reel. So in foreign countries, they love this kind of stuff. It makes them. We made one, our first one, and this is our fifth one, to show Chinese companies which really love this kind of stuff what we do. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not smart enough to get the sound to work. So sorry
well, that
about
might
that.
be to some benefit here, Matt. Let's turn that into an asset. Would you mind, as it's running, kind of briefly giving some highlights if we pause on a given project
Sure,
for
I
any?
I've just got to turn it down, and we can always go back. It's really kind of quick paced,
I say
Mhm.
right?
we've
Like,
got about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
all
So
right, so here we'll just did I do it right? Let's see, share. Can you guys see it?
Not
not yet.
yet.
Yeah? No. They screw it up again. God damn it. There
There
we
it
go.
is.
Here we go. Wow. Oh,
That's cool. $50 years. Very cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're
That's
50
fantastic.
years old.
There's some cool stuff in there.
There
Rachel,
is.
we can go ahead and shut down the screen share.
Oh, because I'm not smart enough, and now you're looking at my train.
So you did not have to say that.
There's my train.
It was all part of our operations. That's just
How
how we
cool of
do
a
it.
train is that? Come on.
Yeah, that was cool. So we are at time. That was
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Um,
you so much. Hey, and so if anyone ever has my contact, all my friends from USITT will know. Feel free, student, teacher, whatever. We're also always available for a tour here. If you're down in Orlando, if you happen to be in Dubai, go right ahead. LA is just an office, so it doesn't have a shop.
sure.
But always feel free to contact me about anything, like what you want to do with your life, or for teachers who already know what they want to do with their life, any questions
And
you have.
folks who are here, if you're watching the recording later, if you don't have Matt's contact information, email us at Fusion Studio, and we will connect you with Matt to help him take you. You can take him up on that offer. Again, this was fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Some quick announcements. Our next First Friday in a month from now, October 3rd, Bill Gorlin will be with us. He's the vice
Oh
president of the
yeah,
entertainment division at what was McLaren Engineering Group. They were just purchased, and so we need to do some updating here, or they've just merged with another company. But he's led the engineering of entertainment structures and attractions around the world for nearly 4 decades. He's a licensed professional engineer in 26 states and has been recognized with top honors in his field, including the 20,000, oh my God, including the 2024 Backstage Legend and Master Award and the 2018 Engineer of the Year Award from the New York State Society of Professional Engineers. He's also just an amazing guy to
he's a
talk to.
great
He's
guy.
going to have some
Great guy.
great stories. I'm excited about it. Registration will be up soon for that. Watch your social media and email. And if you have not yet registered and are interested, if you are a student at a university anywhere in the U.S., the 2025 Stage Machine Design Competition registration closes in just a few weeks. You can participate and attend at Purdue University or the University of Connecticut or Florida State University or University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And we will be taking getting passes for the teams with the best designs for the USITT annual conference in March. And we'll even ship your design there so you can show it off. So
Cool.
make sure you sign up and register for that event. Or if you are teaching students who aren't on this call, encourage them to check that out and register. You can find out more information on our website. Matt, thank you again. Mercer, thanks for being here.
Thank you,
And thank you all
guys.
for joining us. We'll see y'all next time.